10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Growing bolder, what's next?
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Growing Boulders. What's next? What in the world is going on today? You know what it is? It's Friday the 13th. Hope I didn't spring it on you. Hope I didn't surprise you, but we're thrilled that you made the effort to be here today. You know why? Because this Friday the 13th is going to be your lucky day. You're off to a great start, and we've got a great guest to help you get your day going. You know, this week was also the 245th anniversary of the Marine Corps, and that's a big deal to an awful lot of people. We are so indebted to the Marine Corps and the people that have served in it for their bravery, for their service, for their duty. And it's also, this week was Veterans Day as well, and there's so much that we can learn from our veterans on how to be leaders, on how to get the most from ourselves. So when you do see someone who is in the military, and this is one of our things we like to do, don't just thank them for their service. Learn from them. That's the greatest compliment that we can offer to someone who has stepped up to try to make a difference for us, to serve their country. Learn from them. And that's what we're going to do here in the next few minutes. We'll be talking to retired Marine Corps Colonel Art Tomassetti, a modern-day Chuck Yeager, a test pilot, not just any test pilot, but the test pilot who not only made history, but ushered in the era of the F35 fighter. And you want to see why that was so important and why that was such a big deal? You are going to love this. And I want you to see this before we meet our guest, so you have a better idea of how amazing what he did really is. So, folks, fasten your seatbelts, put on your oxygen mask, and let's meet the plane that he flew in, the F-35.
At Lockheed Martin, our mission is to keep you mission ready, and the F-35 Lightning II delivers. When advanced engineering matters most, when air superiority requires superior technology, when precision means you're ready for all possibilities, the F-35 is a step ahead.
Man, that is incredible. It is, without a doubt, the most complex, also the most expensive aircraft ever assembled. Totally pushes the envelope as far as technology and what it can do, and stealth and supersonic. Doesn't it make you want to jump right in that cockpit, pull the canopy shut, and fire the afterburners? No, me either. It looks dangerous to me. It looks so terrifying. I'm the guy that gets dizzy in my mom's Maxima. So thank goodness there are people like our next guest. He is a combat veteran of the Gulf War. He has been awarded the Legion of Merit, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal, the Meritorious Service Medal, and has been president of the Society of Experimental Test Pilots. And he is still growing bolder in his life. He is U.S. Marine Corps Colonel Art Turbo Tomassetti. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you doing today?
Man, it is so great to have you here, especially in this week where we've seen the Marine Corps anniversary and for Veterans Day. I'm sure two very meaningful dates for you.
Oh, absolutely. And Friday the 13th is kind of a meaningful date for me as well. I was born on Friday the 13th. I got my commission on Friday the 13th. I soloed the first time on Friday the 13th, and I retired from the military on Friday the 13th. So it's a pretty significant day for me every year.
And that's great. And it's also good to hear that it's a lucky day. You know, superstitions not withheld. We can break superstitions, and we can control a lot of things in our lives that some people sometimes aren't so sure about.
Absolutely. And, you know, there's one thing I learned in my time in flying airplanes is being in control is really important in that environment, obviously, because so many things are happening and things are happening extremely fast. So it is almost essential that you understand what it takes to be in control of that airplane every second and every minute. And I think I've carried through a lot of those things in my daily life as well.
See, Art, I think there's two aspects to you, though. One is the comfort zone, as getting to know your aircraft, knowing how it works, being able to instinctively make the changes and corrections you need to. But yet there's the other side, too. There's something about heroes, and there's something about people of greatness that we forget. And that is, at one time, you were Artie. You were the kid in school, right? You were an ordinary person, but you saw an opportunity to live an extraordinary life. And the difference between you and others is you stood up and you said, yeah, why not me?
Yeah, I think, I like to talk to people about it, and they ask, how did you get to where you are today? And I tell you, if you imagine when you were younger at some transition point in your life, either graduating high school or graduating college, and someone came up to you and said, hey, there's a lot of paths you can choose in your life. And if you pick this particular path, you will get to do amazing things, work with extraordinary people, be part of significant events, know that what you are doing matters, is relevant. And when you look back on that, knowing that everything you did made a difference. I mean, I don't know who wouldn't opt to choose that path. And I believe, partly through my own doing and partly through help of others, that I was able to get on that path.
The decision is much easier, though, when you know that you came out of it. You didn't know that when you went in. You didn't know what would happen. In fact, Art, you flew 39 combat missions in the Gulf War, which is remarkable, and which we thank you for. I think one of the other things that makes you stand out too is, people sometimes hear you talk and, you make it sound, well, it was very easy. I said, yes, I was here. This is what I did. But you decided after those combat missions, you go, I think I want to be a test pilot. So you applied, and of course they accepted you right away, right?
Unfortunately, no. I knew from the time I was a little kid that I wanted to be a test pilot or astronaut. I grew up in a time where things were happening with airplanes that were very exciting. We were putting people on the moon. It was all formative for a kid my age. And I knew that's what I wanted to do. It sounded awesome. It looked awesome. And when people ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And if you told them test pilot or astronaut, hey, they were smiling and happy. That seemed to be a good answer. So when I got to the point where I was actually able to apply for test pilot school, I was very excited. I sent my application off. I waited anxiously for the results to come back and got that first message back that said I was rejected. And the next time I applied 6 months later, got a message back saying I was rejected. And that would go on for 4 years, and until my 7th try when I finally was accepted. So one of two things happened. Either they recognized that I actually might have had something to offer to the test pilot community, or they just got absolutely tired of me sending in applications all the time and decided to move me forward.
But see, that's such a great lesson for all of us. I mean, we get rejected once or twice. Sometimes we feel like it's the end of the world. This was your dream. And 6 times they told you no, but you hung in there. Perseverance. Where do we find perseverance?
I think part of it is, and I like to talk about resiliency. And to me, that's one of the key components of resiliency, is being able to persevere. Every time in life and anything you choose to do, you are more than likely going to run into obstacles, places where the hill gets a little steep to go up, things that get in your way, things that want to obstruct you, and even just days when you're feeling like I just can't get there from here. But because you've heard this, you've seen it in movies, you've heard it from people talking about it, you've read it in history books, that perseverance absolutely always pays off. And you can take that to the bank, right? So if you know for a fact that persevering and continuing to push forward is going to eventually get you where you want to be, then that should be enough encouragement to make you want to take that next step, and then the step after that.
Okay, folks, we're talking with Art Tomassetti, an amazing test pilot, and I'm still in the point of the program where we're kind of setting up who he is, giving you a little bit of background before we get to the amazing stuff that is going to make all of us look at ourselves differently, think differently, and reach for greater success than we have before. But Art, you weren't just chosen to fly the X-35. That's what it was then. You were part of the team that designed it as well. Tell us about, you didn't expect to be the guy who tested it in the sky, did you?
No, in fact, we talked about all those tries to get into test pilot school. Had it worked out differently in any of the other timing, and I would have missed that opportunity for the X-35. But there I was, fresh out of test pilot school, being told that, hey, you're going to be part of this test team that's going to work on this experimental airplane called the X-35. And right now it's just a bunch of drawings on paper and a bunch of schematics. It may or may not ever come to be anything. And I knew that I was going to be involved with the development, and that meant everything from how the airplane was going to fly to how the cockpit was going to set up, not only for that experimental airplane, the X-35, but for the airplane that would follow if they won the contract, which we know today as the F-35. And I was highly motivated to want to be part of that. I had been a Harrier pilot coming from my time before test pilot school. I had seen bad things happen in that airplane to close friends. My first 4 years of flying the airplane, I attended several memorial services for people who were involved in accidents that had, what we refer to as bad days in the airplane. And I used to think that it was me. It was all on the pilot. I had to be better than the airplane. And then I went to test pilot school and I found out, you know what? You can make an airplane that's better. You can make an airplane that helps to take care of the people who fly it. So having that opportunity to say, hey, I can get in here and make a difference. I can do something that's going to make the future better for other people. I was highly motivated to push forward and do that.
Well, and as this, what should be a major motion picture continues, we move up now to July 20th, 2001. They called it Mission X, and you went down in history as the first pilot to score a hat trick in one flight. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Mission X was one of the ideas that they had for the competition, because we were in a fly-off at that point between the Boeing airplane and the Lockheed airplane. And the Lockheed team believed that if they could demonstrate a short takeoff, a supersonic dash, and a vertical landing all in the same flight, which had never been done before, that would give them somewhat of an advantage and something that they could really market very well. And I never expected that it was going to be a government pilot, let alone me, to go fly that, because usually those first flights are done by the contractor pilots. So I get one afternoon, I'm standing there in the room and I get the test conductor and he says, hey, I'll have the cards for tomorrow's flight ready. You're on the schedule for tomorrow. Okay, great. I say, and I come back, get a cup of coffee, come back, and I'm flipping through the cards and I realize, looking at it, that it's the Mission X profile. Wow. And I just had this sort of dumbfounded look on my face, and he's got all these smiles. And I said, they're really going to let me do this? And he said, yeah. And I probably was never more anxious about a flight. And I had flown in combat. I had flown in some pretty interesting scenarios in airplanes prior to that. But I was probably never more anxious because I knew what was riding on that flight. I knew that I had to be at my 100% best in order for everything to come out well that day. And I knew that if things didn't go well, that was not going to bode well for the program. So it was exciting. It was busy. I mean, it was nonstop, second to second, something I had to do, except for the part where I was supersonic. I finally got to supersonic. We're over the dry lake bed at Edwards Air Force Base, same place that Chuck Yeager had broken the sound barrier decades before. And the engineer said, hey, just dwell there for a few seconds. We want to collect some data. So for about 5 or 7 seconds, I didn't have anything to do except just keep going straight, which was pretty easy. And I got a chance to just kind of look out the side and look down, and I see myself over the dry lake bed, and knowing what had transpired in the X1 decades prior, it's like, whoo, that was a lot to take in and register. But then right away, it was back to business and continue on with the rest of the flight to get to that final vertical landing, touchdown. And when the engine came back to idle, I probably breathed for the second. I think I breathed twice during the whole flight, probably breathed for the second time at that point.
It's just incredible. And folks, just to underscore how important that flight was, the plane you saw in that video, your plane is in the Smithsonian. So is your flight gear. I mean, tell us about that honor. And I know that was huge, but I also happen to know that your heart is in making a difference.
Absolutely. I don't know, there's so many emotions that could come from saying that something you did and a machine that you operated is sitting in a museum. And there can be, you can extract good from that, or you can extract something other than good from that. I extract good from that because I know that it was it's an indication that what we did, and I say we because it was absolutely a team effort, and nothing significant like that happens without teamwork. But what we did made a difference, and what we did was significant. I happened to be the lucky individual who was in the cockpit driving the airplane. The dozens and hundreds of other people involved, from getting the airplane ready to building that airplane to the airplanes that were flying on my left and my right for my safety chase pilots that day, to the people who were in the control tower making sure that when it was my time to come into the runway, everything was clear. That incredible amount of teamwork is what I see when I look at that display. Most people see this really cool airplane, and most people see this flight suit sitting in a display case, but I just see an indication of teamwork and what people working together, focused and committed, can truly achieve.
Wow. I also think it's important to say that there are a lot of people that go out and try to do things that haven't been done before, set records, and generally they're in it for personal glory or a personal challenge. But what you did was done out of a sense of duty, and that's a huge differentiator, at least in our eyes. And folks, here comes the best part of the interview, at least from my point of view, because so much of what Art's learned over his career and throughout his life, it applies to everything. It applies to us too, even the things that you and I face in our own lives. Are there any Star Trek fans watching? One of the best movies they did involved figuring out what to do when you're faced with a no-win scenario. And this is a big part of what Art likes to talk about too. We have those no-win scenarios in life all the time. All of us do. And you face yours by saying E-I-E-I-O.
Yeah. So one of the things that I have the good fortune to be able to do from time to time is to talk to people about leadership, because I had some tremendous opportunities in my military career and in my career after the military to be in a leadership role. And, you have this time as you're kind of growing into your leadership phase of your life where you get to observe other people and you get to say, well, I like what that person does. I don't like so much what that person does. I like that style. I don't like that style. And you start to soak all that in, and you start to figure out how can you utilize all those things that you were happy about and all those things that you saw were successful. So I tried to do that, right? And I tried to say, okay, I know that my role as a leader has nothing to do with making myself look good, has nothing to do with what accolades I can get. My role as a leader at the end of the day is to enable my team, my group, my organization, whatever that may be. My role as a leader is to enable them to be successful. So when I came up with this EIEIO, and it's things like, you need to educate your team. Why are we doing what it is we're doing? You need to instill a sense of purpose. You need to tell them why it's not only what we're doing, but why is what we're doing important. You need to inspire them, and you need to empower them to be able to do things. And then the last thing, the O part of it, is the most interesting one, I think, for me, because it is a term that I use called Overwatch. And if you're not in the military, you're probably not familiar with that term, but Overwatch is where I, as the leader, I'm not involved, I'm not micromanaging, I'm not directing minute by minute, day by day what to do. I'm back in a position where I can support the team, where I can step in to lend assistance if they hit an obstacle. I can step in to inspire and encourage if they hit a down point or a slow point. But I'm just back letting the team be the ones to get the job done, to be successful. And I'm just there in a position to provide that overwatch, to make sure that I can clear the path and enable them to get to that success.
That's amazing. EIEIO, educate, instill a sense of purpose, establish conditions of success, inspiration, and overwatch. Those are things that we can all apply to our own problems in life. And, another thing you talk about is we all hit walls. We come up against mountains that seem insurmountable, have serious problems in our life. What do we do when we come across a mountain?
Yeah, there's an analogy I like to use, and it's a rock climbing analogy, and it's based on my observations. And I think that generally speaking, there's two kinds of people in the world. There are people who are, if you were to look at a mountain or an obstacle in front of you, will sit there and they'll talk about how big it is, how tall it is, how dangerous it is, how much work it's going to take to get across. And they'll talk a long time about everything they can talk about, but not move any closer to negotiating that obstacle. And then there's the other kind of people. And those are the kind of people who will look at that obstacle. They will look at that mountain. They will step one foot. They will put one hand on, and they will start to navigate that obstacle. And once they do that, you will find that there's 4 elements that those people who will get on that obstacle need. They need to have the confidence that they can go up, because that's generally speaking for getting over a mountain the way you want to go. So they need to have that confidence they can do it. And that confidence comes from within, and that confidence can come from leaders instilling and inspiring and enabling that confidence. They need to be clever. They need to know that sometimes the path may not be straight. They may need to take a left or a right around something in order to get there. They need to use their cleverness to figure out how to keep moving to negotiate that obstacle. They need to have courage, because it's hard to navigate an obstacle, no doubt. And then sometimes you'll find that you've got to go and take a step back. And it takes a lot of courage sometimes to admit that that step you took, that direction you were going, was wrong. And you need to regroup, reassess, and take a step back. And then finally, and perhaps the most important thing, is once you put your hand and foot on that mountain, you need to have the commitment to never let go. And when you find people who embody those things I call the 4 C's, and you put those kinds of people together on a team, my experience says there really is nothing they can't achieve.
I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, this should be in every high school in America, because it makes it so clear how to approach things in life. Confidence to go forward, the cleverness to change your route if you need to, the courage to go back and regroup, and the commitment to never stop, to never let go. This is great advice. Something else I wanted to ask you about too is there's another mountain I think that we all face in life, and one that you may be going through now. What happens when a highly driven, disciplined guy like you suddenly retires? I mean, so much of what you are and who you are has been wrapped up in what you did, your day-to-day life and your duties. It's something that we all face, and it seems like it's never an easy adjustment.
Yeah, so I guess what I would tell you that I have one recipe for success, because it's the only thing that I know from my experience that worked for me, is way back when I was young, I set this really big goal. So, and it took me a long time to get there, and it gave me a lot of opportunity to stay busy trying to get to that goal of being a test pilot and accomplishing those things. So now that I find that, okay, I sort of got to where I wanted to be, I would say that I hit that goal pretty well. So then I just do what I did the first time that worked. I just set another big goal. So that next big goal is save the world. And I know how that sounds. And you'll see wearing the superhero t-shirt. Now, I can't fly. I don't have a big hammer. I don't have any cool tool belt or anything like that. But if you think about it and you break it down, at the end of the day, superheroes are about making the world a better place, about saving the world. And I think that's awesome. And I think that's what I want to do. So I've set this huge goal, save the world. And right now I'm accomplishing that with one motivational speech at a time, one inspirational video at a time. And if I can reach out there and I can touch one person and make their day better today, and tomorrow I can touch 2 people and make their day better, inspire them to go make somebody else's day better. Imagine if we all took that approach. Imagine if we all did that. I think saving the world, as lofty a goal as it sounds, I think it is achievable.
You know, why not? Why shouldn't we set our sights as high as we possibly can? You probably never ever thought that you'd be a historical test pilot. And look at the comments that are coming through on our Facebook and YouTube page too. Pete, this is a message that touches all of us. You know, we all need to reach inside to fulfill our potential, to find out what we can do. I mean, the thing that leads to a fulfilling life is feeling like you gave it your best. You had adventures in your life. You tried to make a difference for others. And that's exactly what you've done. And it's why we love your story, and why we especially love the things that you've learned and the way you can explain them to us. So let me ask you this: from all your experiences, from all you've been through, the good and bad, what have you learned about life that you can pass along to the rest of us?
Yeah. So I think the key things, and we've touched on them a little bit, is I have gained an appreciation through all of my experiences on the value of teamwork. People coming together and working together. It's just truly incredible what we as human beings can achieve when we do that. I think I know how a good leader should act and how a good leader should enable those kinds of things to happen for a team. And I think there's this sense of ongoing obligation and duty. Yes, I served my country for 28 years in uniform, but I look at from the time I can start remembering things, I kind of equate every one of my experiences to another tool I've added to this tool chest of mine. So in the beginning, I only had a few tools. I had a screwdriver, I had a wrench, I had a hammer. I couldn't build very much. I could build very simple things. And over my career and over my experiences, I've learned more and more. So I've added to that toolbox. So now I have this really elaborate toolbox that has come from all these experiences that I've had. I can build some pretty amazing things. So I can't just let that toolbox sit in the garage, right? I got to do something with it. I acquired all these amazing tools from all these life experiences. It's time now to go build something with that, to go make something of that. So I think those are the things that I would take away from all of my life experience. What can be accomplished when great people work together as a team, how a leader should act to enable those kinds of successes, and this obligation that you're never quite done with paying back and doing something for the greater good, using those tools you've acquired to make the world a better place.
That is fantastic. It's like you're preaching from the Growing Bolder playbook. It's so good to hear that we all want to be on Team Tomassetti. And there aren't enough leaders like you, like Growing Bolder, out there just reminding people that we can do amazing things and we can reach for more no matter what stage life we're in. Stay with us. Normally we say goodbye at this point and go on to do some other things, but I've got a little thing I want you to help me with here. But I want to let everybody know, for more information on retired Marine Corps Colonel Art Tomassetti, you can check out his website, which is very cool. It's called time2climb.com. Make sure to check that out for more information there. He's just a fascinating guy, and I wasn't kidding. There really should be a major motion picture about him. We're going to move on to our inspiring meme of the week, which we have on all of our Growing Bolder What's Next programs. And this one comes from a fellow named Art Tomassetti, who said, "Your mountain awaits. Are you going to stare or are you going to climb?" That's really powerful, Art.
Absolutely. I mean, again, you just need to pick which kind of person that you want to be. If those are your two choices, I would highly encourage you to pick the person who is going to negotiate that obstacle and start climbing.
That's incredible. That's what we got to ask ourselves. Are we going to stare or are we going to start climbing? Art Tomassetti, this has been fantastic, and it couldn't come at a better time. The week of the Marine Corps anniversary, the week of Veterans Day, and the lucky Friday the 13th. Thank you for turning that around for us. You're fantastic. And I'm sure we'll see you in Growing Bolder Magazine and Growing Bolder Television and growingbolder.com. Thank you for contributing to our society, to our culture, and humanity as well. Man, fantastic. Isn't it great? I want to thank Art Tomassetti for that supersonic shot of inspiration. And we want to thank you for your support, for your curiosity, for getting the word out about Growing Bolder and bringing more people into inspiring programming like this, because folks, we are all in this together, and together we can help lift each other up and move forward. So for me, for Director Mike Nannis and everyone here, make today a great one. And remember, don't just thank someone in the service, do your best to learn from someone in the service, because that's Growing Bolder.
Growing Bolder, what's next?